Welcome back, guys, to yet another The War Within video. Today, we are going to be talking about tailoring and what I would deem the best profession builds for the profession. This is just like from my perspective for what I think is going to be good. Obviously, there's going to be people that enjoy all kinds of different things or want to focus on different stuff inside professions, but this is what I'm going to focus on, but also the best professions for the things that I'm going to focus on. Before we do get into the video though, make sure that you drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and put all the notifications on, because then you will be able to see any future videos that we make surrounding professions, and it's good stuff. But tailoring, again, we get tailoring again in The War Within, and just to give you guys a quick overview, it's much of the same stuff, okay? We have Unraveling again. Unraveling is different this time around because it's mostly just focused on spools. Resourcefulness actually works this time compared to The War Within, or Dragonflight, where it did not work, even though it said it was supposed to. We have 3 different kinds of cloth, and these all drop off of enemies, obviously humanoids, that you kill throughout the lands, throughout the new zones. And they create spools, right? So Unraveling is still very important because it's used in a lot of the crafts. You can see here some of the epic crafts use it. And then we have our daily cooldown crafting bolts. As you can see right here, we have Dawnweave bolts and we have Duskweave bolts. This is the new Asher Weave and Chrono Cloth. And these are going to be used quite a lot as well. Now, when it comes to everything else, obviously we have gear crafting, as you can tell. If you want to do work orders, that's where you're going to be going. There's also finishing reagents, as we had. There's some profession equipment, which is also gear crafting. And then we have your occasional consumable, right, through spell threads. And then we have bags. Bags, there's a lot of bags. I talked about this in a previous video surrounding The War Within. And we have quite a lot of bags, right? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15, right? There's 15 different bags. Some are normal. You can see this 38 slot bag, and then you have the Weaver cloth bag here, 34 slot, and then another reagent bag, 36 slots right here. But there's also profession bags, and these profession bags are going to be very interesting to have, very worth it to have for anyone that uses these. Now, these are just regular bags. You can equip them in any slot that you have. It doesn't have to be only a reagent bag. You can actually put it in anything, right? You can equip 2 different profession bags, one for each of your profession. So in my case, I would have an alchemy one and a tailoring one. And you can see here, I have the severed satchel. Then I would be increasing my yield of Castlegar Unraveling by 1. Or if I go for the alchemy one, I believe it's, nope, that's enchanting. Which one is it? Oh no. This one, right here. Increases the chance Agari experimentations discover a new recipe by 1%. It's not a big difference, but 1% could mean a lot on whether or not you get lucky on getting the right recipes for what you want. It's a bonus that you actually want to see. Now, why do I talk about these different things? That's because when we go into specialization and we want specializations and we want to pick our builds, I just wanted to give a quick description as for some of the different things that you can make in the profession. For tailoring, there are 4 different spec trees that you can go into. We have Threads of Devotion, From Dawn Until Dusk, Quality Fabric, and Textile Treasures. Now, Threads of Devotion, this is the gear crafting corner. This is, if you want to do work orders or if you want to do crafted gear, this is a corner that you have to go for. This will let you craft, better versions to green, blue, which is rare, and then epic purple versions. This is where you're going to have to go because this will be where you actually learn these recipes. And on top of that, when you are leveling tailoring, if you want to get all the way to 100, currently the way that it is in tailoring is that you have to craft at least some gear, which is a little unfortunate, but it's actually not that bad because the maybe 20 skill points that you lose out on, you can make up for in concentration until you get to a reasonable point where you can actually deem it worth it to use knowledge points on that. Then we have From Dawn Until Dusk. This is your daily cooldown crafted bolts, as I showed you before. Dawnweave bolts and Duskweave bolts, and this is where you're if you want to go into that on something like an alt army, that's where you would go. And then we have quality fabric, and as it says here, this is not only for spell threads, but it's also making your unraveling better, your embroidering quality, which is finishing reagents, and then improving the quality of the materials you use, and perfect your tailoring empire. In Dragonfly, embroidery was also bags. Usually, well, not usually, sometimes Blizzard makes it kind of easy to understand what's going on. You can see here that it says embroidered bags, so that's most likely going to be the case again. The thing about bags is it's only resourcefulness that matters, so that is a little bit of a difference. But as you can see here, weaving and unraveling, this is going to be for bolts and unraveling. This here, spell thread, obviously for spell thread, and additional embroidery. You'll see here that this is where we learn some of the embroidery thread, and this will give you multi-craft when crafting polishing cloth and plus skill. So it's a little interesting that they call embroidered bags under this talent tree, because it doesn't really seem like it does anything at all. But it does still give you 1 skill point in this specialization, so it matters if you want to create finishing reagents. But again, this is one of those inconsistencies with the profession, but it doesn't really seem like it's that important when you look at the bags. But you can use finishing reagents on bags, which increases potentially, you can see here, you refund an additional 10% more reagents when crafting Kesselgar tailoring goods. And if you can make these at a higher rank, you're going to be able to get more back from your resourcefulness procs, which is going to be absolutely worth it. Then the last talent tree here, which is textile treasures, you have this point will, as you can see, learn a subspecialization on your choice and find weaver cloth bolts from humanoids. This is going to be the talent tree you want if you're going for a farming angle. This will also give you more multicraft from goods. As you can see, this point is just, this tree is just pure multicraft. If you're looking at this one, this is pure resourcefulness. And then you're looking at this one, this is ingenuity and concentration. So this is the profession stats page. This is for getting better at making finishing reagents, and as you can see here as well, getting skill and resourcefulness for unraveling and weaving cloth. And then here you have your skill when you're crafting finishing reagents. So there's quite a bit of difference in between these different spec trees, but let's get into some of the different builds that you can do. Now, for what I am going to do personally, you're looking at from dawn until dusk. I will personally be going into these on a lot of my alts, because the ones that I don't lock in on too often, I'm going to be wanting to make these. These were great pretty much the entire expansion of Dragonflight, the Dragonflight versions, and these will be used for literally almost everything in of the stronger crafts. If you just type in Duskweave here, you'll be able to see quite a lot of stuff that uses it. It's going to be great, right? And you can also see here, these use 24 of these bolts, which is quite a lot. It's actually like a lot. And the really important part is the fact that they're used like this for bags, which is that's pretty important to think about. And then we also have the lining here, while above 80% health gain versatility. So any verse users will be using this as well. So quite a lot of stuff that you'll be able to use that on. And then we have, what's it called? Dawnweave. Same situation. It's also used for a couple of different bags. It's used for some spell thread and things like that. So because of that, I want to go into this particular spec tree. Also because it's daily crafting cooldowns. And these two different lines is just whether you go into dusk weaving or dawn weaving first. And honestly, that's a little hard to tell because it also kind of depends on your server and what people are looking for. But based on the based on the recipes and how much is required for the different crafts that these both open up for, I would say that it's probably worth it to go for I mean, no matter what, you're going to be putting 30 points into this one unless you want to spec into one of them first. But as you can see here, you'll learn your sub-spec immediately after putting a point into here. Then you'll be increasing your skill and ingenuity for both crafts. Then you'll get your Dawnweave reagent bag on 10 points. On 20 points, you'll be able to get your Duskweave bag. And then the final sub-specialization here. Now, you'll unlock more when you go through. But whether you go for one or the other to start, it doesn't really seem like it doesn't seem like it's that different this time around like it was in Dragonflight. So I think spreading points out, so you're just going 30 points, and then you're putting 10, 10, and then 20, 20, and then 30, 30, and then you go into this, which will, you know, increase the amount of cooldowns that you can get. So you go from having 10 to 20 to 30, right? As you can see, this will also further improve your connection with Dawnweave. So this also gives you a little bit of multicraft and things like that, which is obviously very good. And this one over here gives you your sunrise bracers, and this will give you your cool sunset bracers as well. So because you get a couple of gear crafted things out of this particular build, you will also be able to get to 100 without any major issues. Now, once you've gotten to that point and you're like, okay, well, now I've maxed out this entire spec tree, well, where would I go next? Well, you have two different options, right? Either you want to go for your regular profession stats, which is resourcefulness and multicraft, or you go for concentration and ingenuity. This heavily depends on whether or not you really need to get higher ranks when you're crafting this, or you would be okay with getting more or using less on crafting them. If you want to go the concentration way and you want to craft more of the higher ranks for higher gear for your guild or public work orders or whatever it is, then you would have to go for what was called this one over here. Gain plus 10 multicraft when making tailoring goods. And you would have to put at least 15 points into textile treasures, and then you would actually be able to put points into this. So that's where I would go most likely. Well, you get a subspec already here, and then you start finding Weavercloth bolts. But if you unlock 2 of them, then you'll also be able to go into ingenuity and concentration. So that would be part 2. So whether or not you choose you just unlock one subspec immediately and then decide, okay, well, I want multicraft first, and then after that, I'll go for ingenuity and concentration. Then you can do that. There's also resourcefulness. So these are the trees that you have an opportunity to go into. Once you've put 30 points into here, you'll have all of these unlocked. So I would probably go from dawn until dusk into textile treasures. And then quality fabrics is a little bit of an outlier because this does also give you ingenuity when you're crafting specialty items. But the thing is, as you can see, this talks about embroidery, which we know as finishing reagents. It talks about spell thread, which is consumables, and then you have weaving and unraveling. This actually does go into weaving cloth, which counts for the bolts, which is how it was in Dragonflight as well. So if you want skill and resourcefulness, this is where you would go after. But the amount of profession stats that you get out of textile treasures is way better than this. So once you've maxed this out, you can go into quality fabrics and put 10 points into here, and then just fill this entire thing out, 30 points into it. And then after that, you have the opportunity of going into Threads of Devotion for gear crafting, but that's, very far into it. It'll be, for any regular player, probably a couple of months into the expansion. So that's a little less relevant. Now, as I talked about before, the other build for tailoring, if you're planning on farming, which is very obvious, you're going to have to put 30 points into textile treasures. And if that's all you use the profession for, then that's literally almost all that you need. You also do you would be pretty smart in using a couple of these to, increase it. But once you've gotten 30 points, that's the only one that really makes a difference when it comes to farming. So that's another build, and then you can kind of decide where you want to go from there. If you want to go into gear crafting, you just have to start over here in Threads of Devotion. It's pretty simple. There's not much of a difference in any of these. Like you will eventually get into these, spec trees when you're crafting gear, depending on how much concentration or skill points that you want, how often you want to make things. But as a general thing, when it comes to gear crafting, especially early on, as we saw with Dragonflight, you want to pick a couple of pieces that you can kind of max out immediately, because then you'll have a chance of, well, really competing with other people, because there's no one early on that's going to be able to fill this entire tree out. So you want to pick a couple of these things and just go from there. That's going to be the smartest thing if you go for gear crafting. Obviously, once you get further in, you'll be able to fill these out fully and spec into everything. And after, like, midway through, if you only want to craft 4 different things, say that's the case, then you could go over here and increase how much you get back from your profession stats, right? Again, as we talked about before, because it counts for that stuff. Obviously, multicraft, it doesn't make any sense to get multicraft for gear, but it does make some sense when it comes to resourcefulness and ingenuity and concentration. So you would probably be returning to textile treasures, or maybe potentially in quality fabrics, just because it'll give you some skill points in some of the additional things that you need for gear crafting. But most of the time, when you are crafting gear, you're interacting with the work order system, and you just need to be good at making the actual gear, not necessarily providing the materials, because most people, if you find really good orders, will just buy the materials and send them to you through a work order when they're actually asking you to craft something. But that's really all the options that you have. There are maybe some small spec differences if you go really niche. There might be something for Unraveling. I don't think, like, Unraveling isn't in the same state as it was in Dragonflight, where we had the different kinds of cloth that had, like, the rousing materials attached to them. That's not the case for Dragonflight or the War Within. We have these, obviously, Weaver Cloth and Duskweave and Dawnweave, but when it comes to spools, we actually just have 3 different spools. We have spool of Weaver thread, and then we have spool of Dusk thread, and then we have spool of Dawn thread, and that's all it is. There's not really anything else to it, so we don't have to worry about that this time. Spools are used in a fairly different way. Like, some crafts do require quite a decent amount of spools, but still, it's something that you have to worry about, but it's not going to be the same. You can see here a spool of Dawn thread on the some of the gear crafting. You'll have to use a little bit more, but we'll see how all this turns out. I hope this was informative in some way. I hope you guys got something out of this. If you have any questions to tailoring, make sure that you drop them down in the comments below. Obviously, at the time of recording this video, this is still in the beta. There's a couple of things, small things, that haven't been fully fixed for tailoring yet. But as for this profession specialization trees, they're mostly finished. There's a bug with this particular one for mantles, but they'll fix that eventually. As for every single other thing, there are, small typing mistakes, but it's pretty much finished, and we have all the material cost on pretty much all the different crafts are almost there. So it's not gonna have any major changes at this point, which is why I decided to make this video. I know I yap a lot when it comes to professions, so if you watched all the way to this point, make sure that you type YAP, Y-A-P, down in the comments below. Then I know you've watched all the way to this point in the video. But either way, I'm gonna stop talking now. I appreciate you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.